Welcome back to Blatantly Honest with Makaila Nichols. I have an incredible guest for you guys today. She comes from my hometown. We went to the same high school and pretty much grew up together. And now she's an up and coming alternative pop artist. So thank you so much for being on the show, Miss Casey Conroy.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited.
Me too. I know our relationship started in, oh my God, when we were little itty bitties, and just kind of watching you
Kindergarten.
has been absolutely incredible. So I'm very, very proud of you.
Wow, I feel like the same about you.
It was funny when I was, thinking of some questions and everything to kind of ask you. I kept thinking of the one time when you and I played volleyball together, and I think you're about to sing like the national anthem.
Oh my God. Yeah.
And we were in the locker room, and you kept singing to me because you were so nervous. And I vividly remember like us in our volleyball outfits, just sitting there waiting, and you're singing, and it was great. So I'll always remember that.
That's wow. Thank you for bringing that memory back. I totally remember that. I remember sitting in the locker room saying, "Listen to, does this sound good? Does this sound good?" But no, still to this day, the national anthem is like the one thing that it gets me. Like I get so nervous. That's probably like my one thing I don't like doing the most.
I don't think I could ever pull it off, but you've always did great. And look at where you are today now. And, it's that's incredible. Before we dive into like your whole life story and everything, tell me a little bit about like your music inspiration.
So my dad, he is a musician. He never really pursued it as a career, but it's always been his number one passion and his favorite hobby. And so growing up, pretty much music was everywhere in our house. It was if we weren't listening to his playlists and his favorite songs. We were writing together. I was watching him play the piano. We were singing together, and so it was everywhere. And I think seeing his passion so strong from such a young age really instilled in me kind of the same thing, this incredible passion for music. And so he's always been my number one inspiration for why I do it.
I didn't know that. So your dad really kind of inspired you to do everything now. Did your mom do any music? I know you guys are super tight knit.
Yeah, no, my mom is my best friend, totally, but she cannot hold a note. It's good. Like, I actually love it because she's so far away from it that I get really unbiased advice, like she doesn't have that kind of like emotional connection. And sometimes she's like the person I can have lunch with and we can talk about literally anything but that, which sometimes your mind needs it, but no, my mom, not at all.
No, I get that. That's how like my dad is. Like he is very business minded and very entrepreneurial. And then my mom is just like the same. Like she's my best friend, but it works, it helps.
Oh, it's a good balance.
For sure. So I remember when we were young, like I said, whether it be from volleyball, but you started your career pretty early on. And I know I did too. So how was that? I know for me, and you've heard about, my story with, struggling with friendships to struggling with body image because of my career. Tell us a little bit about how you felt. Did you feel overwhelmed when you were starting your music career?
So yeah, actually, I totally did. And growing up, I always knew I kind of wanted to be on a stage. I wanted to do something. It was whether it was theater or music. But it was funny because I always had this like debilitating stage fright. And so it was like a really weird tension of like wanting something so much, but being afraid of it. So it was really scary. And I think I was in maybe ninth grade. It was like the summer of eighth grade going into ninth grade. I finally was like caught myself in a time where my passion was a little bit stronger than my fear.
Mhm.
And so I was like, okay, I'm going to just go for it. And I signed up for a singing competition, which was like so out of my comfort zone, so out of my personality. And I did horrible. Like I got through the first round and then I was cut. But it kind of like, I think because I took the first step, it really like empowered me that I could do anything I wanted since I faced that fear. And so from there, I realized, yeah, this is exactly what I want to do. And I started to really pursue it. I met with a producer when I was in ninth grade. And I just started trying to figure out kind of this industry and how it worked. And when I was in 10th grade, was really a really hard time for me because it was the first time I had to deal with having this incredible focus and passion on one side and then still needed to deal with like the day-to-day things that a 10th grader deals with. And a lot of the things that you talked about, like friendship became really hard, because I had a hard time relating to people, because we just had different interests and focuses. And I was also dealing with this terrible stage fright thing that I had to be getting in front of people every single week to try to get over it. And it was just really hard. You deal with all of the hormonal things that a 10th grader deals with. And like you said, like you're dealing with self-image, you're dealing with self-consciousness in some ways, and to have to go through that like on a stage all the time, really, really hard. And so that was a tough year. That was a tough year for me.
Let's talk about that stage fright a little bit and how you kind of like deal with it. Because I find, I was talking about how I'm speaking in San Francisco Thursday, and it's like it's a few days before, and I'm like, oh my God, I have to speak. Like my hands start sweating thinking about it. Do you find that with stage fright, you kind of you're like, all right, we're going to roll with it. We're going to run with it?
So I think the difference now, I don't have stage fright anymore. I definitely still get nervous. Mm-hmm. But the difference is when I was dealing with stage fright, if my show was on Friday, Monday morning, I woke up a mess already. Like I couldn't concentrate that week. I would be sick to my stomach all week. And when I would get on stage, I would be shaking so bad, like you could barely hear my voice, my hands would shake. And, but now I don't get nervous until like 10 minutes before, or maybe like it, depending on how big the show is, maybe that same day. And it's amazing because it really allows me that way, to really live in the moment and appreciate it. Because I think nervousness is an important thing. I don't actually think it's a bad thing. I think it means that you care. And so I think I'm starting to find a nice balance between being able to appreciate the moment and be excited about the moment, but still have that, that focus and that care, that the nerves.
Answer. Yeah. I find myself, I'm almost to your point, not fully there yet, but I think it's incredible that, you're able to kind of turn that nervous energy into a phenomenal performance. Because every time I see you perform, I swear it doesn't look like you're nervous at all. So
yeah. I think the funny thing about stage fright is you're really not scared of the actual thing. You're not scared of having to get like to sing on stage, or you're just scared of what people will think, what obviously everybody knows, but also you're just scared of messing up, like of you not being able to be capable of dealing with that. And I think the funny thing is the way that you get over stage fright is by making those mistakes over and over again on stage, like forgetting the lyrics on stage, hitting a bad note on stage, because the more and more you do it, the more you learn that you're capable of dealing with those things. So it's not like I don't ever think I'm going to mess up. I just know that if I do, I have the power and the capability to, to keep it and to control it,
Great advice. I appreciate that. And I'm sure, our listeners will be listening to that as well, just to kind of help them through any obstacle that they might have. But as far as, dealing with stage fright and dealing with school, how did you manage, doing your music and managing school at the same time in 9th, 10th, and even, now in college?
It was really hard. I think my family played a huge part of it. There were a lot of times where I would wake up and I would be like, I can't today, or I don't feel good, I'm not going to do it. And my family was always there to call like BS on it, which was really important. It was really hard at the time, but it was really important, because I would have never gotten over it if I did. But like I said earlier, I think the hardest thing was it just like created a wedge between me and the people I would hang out with at school, because I just had a hard time relating, like I had these things that I was dealing with that they couldn't understand, and they would be dealing with things that I didn't understand, I wasn't thinking about parties or drinking or any of the things. And not that my friends were only thinking about those things, but I just think some of those things that brought people close in school, it was just something that I wasn't willing to spend my time on. I just felt like I really, really, really need to stay focused here. And if I come out of it, I'll lose my focus and I'll lose my, I'll lose my, what's the word? Like this focus that I think made me feel really lonely. I think that's the biggest thing. I felt really isolated and lonely going through that time, which was really hard.
Did you find that, through dealing with that, because I felt the same thing, it was like our peers were out having fun and doing everything. And I know you and I, which is funny because there was like a chunk where like we didn't, not that anything happened, but we didn't really like, talk to each other because I think we were both so caught up in, our own
Yeah.
dreams.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's so funny that, it leaves a lasting impression on someone because it's like, wow, like she is working on her own crap. Like she is driven, she's going to get what she wants. But it sucks feeling alone. High school is such a big portion of our life. And I feel like, one of my biggest regrets in life is that I feel like I missed it a little bit. Do you share that, or do you find that you could care less?
I think it's a little bit of both. I think 80% of the time, I think that I could care less. But I think every once in a while, I'll stop and I'll just kind of think about the fact that, like, there's never going to be anything like high school ever again. And I think I'm really good at, yes, thinking like, oh man, I wish I would have. I wish I would have. But then taking myself back and be like, no, you don't. You think you did now, but I think if you would have went back, you would have done the same thing again. And I was talking to somebody else on actually a different podcast last week, and I was saying how I think, though, that feeling of that little bit of I wish I would have has really been a very great learning thing in my life. And I think I've changed a lot because of it. I try to not go so fast. I try to stay super in the moment and I don't ever want to go back and regret anything. So I try to stay really in the moment.
As far as living in the moment, do you find that like even today, in your day-to-day life that you can manage having those friendships, can manage having that life experience that, your age group kind of like defines?
I don't think the life experience part. I mean, I think that's relative. I think it depends who you ask. I think it depends what you think like a 20-year-old, 21-year-old average life experience is. But as far as like college and college parties and drinking and things like that, I never had that college experience. When I did my first year of college, and then I found that I felt like I was giving to something I didn't care about, when I could have been giving 200% to what I did care about. And I felt like whatever I would be learning, actually being out in the industry like 200% of the time was going to be so much more beneficial to me than being in school. And so I actually decided to come out of school and do music. Give everything to music. And that was a really, really hard decision because I think not regret, but you do always kind of feel a little bit of that fear and anxiety about when you see your friends graduating and things like that. And you're like, oh gosh, what did I do? But then, I don't know, but I think sometimes it takes those kind of sacrifices. But definitely I am better with friendships. I think I found the right friends, that they understand what I'm going through and they're able to be my friend with that in my life, and knowing that that's my number one focus right now. And so I think I've been better. I think I have been able to find a little bit of a balance.
I was kind of in the same boat you were in because both of our lives are so busy and it's like, what do I dedicate my time to? And
Yeah.
one of my main things was, my dad didn't go to college. And so I was like, you know what, damn it, Mac, we're going to go to college. We're going to do it. Is it hard? Yeah. Because, it's like we travel all the time and do all those things, but I almost wish I would have done, what you did to really focus all my time and energy because it's truly paying off for you. And it's just, admirable. I can't imagine how hard of a decision that was because you've always been so intelligent. What was kind of your moment where you're like, all right, Casey, I can't do this anymore?
Well, actually, it was actually a little bit more like an opportunity arose that made me feel like, wow, I definitely need to give 100% to that opportunity. And then something kind of happened when the opportunity fell through. And so that was really tough. But I think it kind of pushed me to do something that maybe I would have been scared to do otherwise. And like you said, like it was a hard decision because I was really cared about school in high school, and I worked really hard, and I had really good grades, and I could have gone anywhere, to go to school.
Mhm.
And I think that idea of not having a plan B, it's terrifying, but there's also a drive in that you just, it's
Yeah.
irreplaceable, because the fire under your butt is so hot because you're like, I have nothing else, like if this doesn't work, I don't think I'll ever be happy doing anything else. I don't think I'll ever be um, really great at anything else, so it was a hard decision, but it's thank you for saying that because it means a lot for you to say that because trust me, there's many days where I'm like, was that the right decision? Like
Mhm.
could I have just done it anyway? Those kind of things, and those are hard. Those are hard thoughts.
I am sure it's extremely hard to deal with, but take it from the other side because I just think our lives are so grossly similar. It's like funny to me. What you're doing is so right for you. And I have enjoyed my college experience, but there's days where I'm sitting there and I go out somewhere and I go do something and I'm standing there on my phone looking at emails and I'm like, all right, Makaila, like what could I be doing right now in this moment to help better myself to but it's like you took that initiative to do it full time and wholeheartedly. And I've always, during my college experience, have been on the fence of, oh, what can I be doing? How could I be applying this in my real life and not just sitting in a classroom? And I have nothing against college. And I think UCF is an incredible school and I'm so blessed to go there. But it's hard, like people like us and other, young minds that are entrepreneurs and just driven it can kind of be daunting to sit in a classroom and be like, all right, I need to be out, I need to be doing something. So for you to have the woman cojones to just kind of do it, I think is nothing that you should regret because I've, teetered and tottered on the exact same thoughts. So, well, good for
Yeah,
you, Casey.
thank you for saying that. And I think that is a big part of building something from the ground up is there's always this feeling like you're never doing enough, which
Hmm.
is a really tough thing to balance in your life, especially like for a music artist, because until I have built a completely self-sustaining music career, my day never ends. I've never done enough work. So I can never sit back, and it's very hard for me to be like, okay, I've done enough work today. Let me go do something, because it's like, well, you're still in the same position. So how have you really done? So it's really hard to balance that mental state. It's a really tough one to be in because you just feel you can easily exhaust yourself. Because you can just feel like I'm never doing enough.
Oh yeah. No, I know 100%. It's funny that
Yeah.
you mentioned that because it's hard. It's like I have the same thought every day. It's like, all right, what are we doing this hour, this moment, this second? And then it's like, you go to bed at night and you're like, wow, I wish, I could do more. But I mean, everything that I see you do, I think you're doing so much more than you realize. And I think we tend to forget ourselves or forget that ourselves because we're our own, worst harsh critic ever. But just think of if you weren't doing what you're doing and the things you would do to get there almost, I think you're overshooting yourself because you're doing great. So if that made any sense.
Thanks so much.
Do you have any plans to go back to college at ever? Has that crossed your mind? Or you're like, I just need to focus on this right now and then maybe?
Oh yeah, I truly feel like music is really a vehicle for me in my life to do a lot of other things that I love. Like I don't ever want to put a limit on my life or the things I'm gonna do. And I think right now this is my goal and this is my passion. I feel like I'll never be able to move on until I guess I'm saying that, but I think maybe I'll get there and it'll never feel like enough. Probably like you'll never be like, okay, I've made it to where I want to be. And I don't know if that will happen, but I feel like right now, this is my focus, and I'll never, if I don't feel like I fulfilled my purpose in that, I think I'll never be able to breathe easy. So I definitely am not closing the door, but for right now, I just have that sole focus.
It's all gonna go great and you're gonna be on like literally everything, Billboard, and I really don't know too much about music, so I'm gonna stop myself there before I look like an idiot. But you're just gonna be You're just incredible. You've always had such an amazing voice. And I was like, all right, sick. Like, good job, Makaila. You can't even sing anything. So,
Please, I can't write books. No.
so as far as your inspiration, who, I don't know if you're like big into social media, as far as like, following other people, really look up to on a day-to-day basis.
I mean, I don't think on a social media basis. I find I like see people on social media, and I think that way I actually really try to stay away from that. Because I think it's very easy to get into a whole mental game with that, but that's a different conversation. But as far as like other artists, I think right now there's a lot of amazing things happening in the music industry with a lot of young female artists that are coming onto the scene. They do a similar thing that I do, and that they are under this like pop umbrella, but really they're really trailblazing a way of like you can be whoever you want, like you can dress how you want, and you can make music depending on how you feel, and you don't like have to box yourself at all in necessarily like, oh, she's this or she's that. And I think there's just an incredible time for it's just an incredible time for that. So there's a lot of great artists, like Maggie Rogers is one I really love, and Destiny Rogers and Sigrid, and I think it's more people like that that I feel like I can identify with, that I'm looking up to.
Wow. So just to kind of, backtrack to your social media comment, because I think this is very important for, our listeners and stuff. What are your thoughts?
I think social media is it's an incredible thing. I'm totally not one of those people that say like social media sucks, and I think that it depends on how you use it. And I think it can be used for great. And for networking and to show what you love and to show who you are if you use it in the right way. But I think it can be super dangerous at the same time, especially when you get into the game of looking up to people based on their Instagrams, or, mostly Instagram. But that I think that can be so dangerous, because I have found many, many times when I have found myself doing that, I can find out later that that wasn't even really a truth. And I think that's so unfair to do that to yourself, to compare yourself with something that's just maybe unrealistic or just not reality. And I think that's why one of my main goals, not only just as an artist, but as a person, is just to be extremely, extremely transparent, because I think it's never fair to the people that might look up to me if I'm not, because then they're going to be chasing something that's unrealistic. Like, for example, I did this post on Instagram the other day, where I was saying like, hey, I'm sorry I haven't like been very active lately. I've been in the studio, because that's what a lot of people, but then I was like, whoa, no, I'm not the studio. I've actually just been in my collaborator's living room, because we can't afford to be in a studio all the time right now, So I think there's so much of that. And I try to be so honest and transparent, even if it's like, doesn't look the best for me, because it's not, I just don't think it's fair for people to look up to things that are unrealistic.
I have always enjoyed, your posts, because like you said, they are very transparent. And I think, especially for someone like yourself that's like rising in the music industry, it's important because, little girls look up to, and boys too, look up to people that, have that influence, have that power. But to be able to say, what, I'm sitting in a living room and I've been here for 10 hours and I have bloodshot eyes because I've been staring at a screen all day, trying to work, trying to produce something for you, is so blatantly honest. God, I hate myself. I just said that. Oh my God.
I love it. But
I think it's very honest and great that you do that. And like you said, maybe it doesn't look the best on you, but it does in a way.
It's just one of those things where it's so easy to, one thing I deal with is sometimes I get really panicked. Like if 4 days go by and I really haven't been doing much, that looks pretty, you know what I mean? Like a lot of times I nanny on the side to kind of pay for things for my project. And so there's some days where I'm working like 12 to 14 hours a day, like 3 days in a week, like 3 days in a row, and just doing that, and so I get panicked. I'm like, wow, I don't have anything to show on Instagram. I've been sitting in my workout clothes, wiping, whatever, for 3 days straight, and I get panicked. I'm like, but I have to like remind myself that it's okay, like that's my life and that's my reality, and I can't put myself down for that. So I just try to be really honest about that, because I feel like there's a lot of people in that position, and it's not me trying to make it in the music industry is not being in the studio every night, or doing these photo shoots all the time, and it's just, and I think a lot of times that process gets very sensationalized. And there's a lot of days where I'm just sitting in my house, just like racking my brain of like ways I can market a song. And sometimes it's hard, sometimes I feel what's the word?
Overwhelmed.
Yeah, maybe overwhelmed, but I just unmotivated. Maybe I just feel down. I feel like I can't do it, and there's a lot of days like that, and it's not pretty a lot of times. And so I just want to be honest about that process.
It's incredible for people to, kind of admit not like the not so pretty sides, because I feel that social media, especially when you're trying to break into an industry, is, oh, look at me doing this, or look at me doing this, instead of what actually goes on. Because I think that if people were to draw more attention to like the behind the scenes, people would be like, oh crap, like maybe it's not so fun and glamorous, because it's not. It's a lot of freaking hard work, and it's a lot of, those hours that you have to spend nannying, or the hours that you have to go to events you don't want to go to just to network and meet people. It's all a game, honestly.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
As far as another social media comment goes, I know we had kind of mentioned like body image just being, in the industries that we are in. Do you want to talk about you've ever struggled, ever felt like you've had to be a certain way?
Yeah. So I think, I said this to you, I think any time that you're doing something or in an industry where you have to see yourself all the time, or a lot of other people see you, the body image is a thing. It's just, even I feel like I've been really blessed because I am comfortable in my own body, and I also am surrounded by a lot of people that love me for who I am and support me being exactly who I am. And so I think that's been a huge part of my story, and that I'm so thankful for. But as far as like through my own eyes, there's every time I'm looking at myself over and over, maybe it's in a video or pictures or, on a cover, there's always something, like it's so hard to not find something. And even being comfortable in your own skin and confident. And I remember I did a video once that I was so proud of it, because I think I did what I do very well. Like I played the music really well, and I think my passion came out so incredibly. But I remember having a thought of actually feeling like maybe I couldn't put it out because I didn't like how my arms looked. And I stopped myself, because I was like, that is so sad, because you've done something so well, something that shows your passion so great, and yet you were actually thinking that it's not good enough because your arms look chubby. Like, and it kind of took me back for a second, and I had to talk myself out of it, because I was like, that's really stupid, but it was really real. I felt embarrassed to put it out, that people were going to think I looked chubby or things like that. And I just think any time where you're constantly looking at yourself, that's something that you have to work with.
I didn't know that. I'm sorry that, you felt that way, because my whole thing with body image is, like I said, we are our own worst nightmare sometimes, and our harshest critic. It's sad because we're always comparing ourselves to other people, I feel. And in doing so, we're tearing ourselves apart and the things that we should be so proud of, but yet we find the one small thing that our brain is like, oh my God, but in reality, it's like, it's not like that. So wow, that's good that you like kind of noted that, saying like, you know what, everything is fine. I'm perfect how I am. Because a lot of people can't do that. And that's very sad and unfortunate. And obviously, body image is something that we all need to work on. Like, I'm even guilty of it. Like, I have to remind myself of small things that I love about myself just to keep myself sane sometimes. But your talent always will kind of shine through, and our brains can battle themselves, but they'll get over it.
And I think an important part of it too that I mentioned is really surrounding yourself with people that help you with that, that don't put those negative thoughts in your mind. And I think that sounds obvious, but sometimes it's not, And there's been many times where I've had people that were able to say to me, "Stop, you're being stupid." Like it's so easy to constantly be like, do I look chubby? I feel like I look chubby in this photo or in this video. And it's, you need people like that to be like, no, you're perfect. That's who you are, like whatever it is, that's who you are. And it's like, you have to stop that. And so it's really important to have people around you that can support you in that way.
Do you find that you've ever at any point in your life kind of surrounded yourself with like the wrong people who wouldn't be so accepting of that?
I think I've been really lucky and really blessed. I wouldn't say like I don't want to say that. There's been times in my life where I have been around people that I don't know they necessarily meant to push that all the time, but however they were acting was causing that kind of reaction in me. And ultimately it didn't work, obviously, like the relationship didn't work. And I especially because I started so young, I think when you're already dealing with those things anyways, I think in some ways it was actually kind of helpful for me in that time to be going through a process of like having to see myself on screen all the time because it was really hard, but it helped me to accept myself a lot. I think my dad, he was telling me this really interesting thing the other day, and he was saying how he works with students a lot and how whenever you film them and you put them on a screen in front of themselves and their peers, they want to hide and run under the table. And it's almost like they're saying, I hate that person. We react in that way. It's just our natural reaction. And he was saying the time when you're very comfortable with yourself is when you can look at yourself on a video and be like, okay, I see myself. Okay, that's great. I did that. I did that. And I think having to go through that a lot when I was young really gave me an acceptance about myself that was very powerful.
I am one of those kids that I think would run when I see myself on video just because, dealing with eating disorders and body dysmorphia and all of that kind of stuff. Like I still find myself being like one of those kids where it's hard to look at myself. And, I really try to preach what you're saying, but it's hard for me and I would be lying if I said otherwise. But it's like you said, it took you time. It didn't just happen overnight. It took you years. And hopefully you're at that point now where you're like, you know what? Like nothing matters. I look great. My music is the driving force. But I think that was a great point that you mentioned. Like a lot of people can't get to that point. With that being said, do you have any advice, for one of those kids that might be a little bit more self-conscious, might want to run and hide when they see themselves on a video camera or on their phone?
Well, first, I just want to say that I still also struggle with that. It is not a mission accomplished at all. But I think, and I know I said this already, but I really, really think it's a lot about who you surround yourself with and people that encourage you to do those things, but also they really help you lift yourself up, and they provide a lot of encouragement. And I think that's just so important because sometimes we can't do it for ourselves. Sometimes we get so thick in the fog of it that it's really hard to see through. And I think having people that can be like, because we are so much harder on ourselves than anybody else. So I think having somebody there to tell us the reality is important. But I would say also an important thing to remember is that if you're dealing with that, 90% of people are also dealing with it, so don't let yourself feel alone in those thoughts, because everybody goes through it.
As far as, just getting to where you are today, like your music career, what has been the most challenging, but then like the most rewarding part of your career thus far?
Getting over the stage fright thing, it was definitely super, super, super challenging, but it's incredibly rewarding. I actually, funny that you said that, did a post yesterday that said, it's crazy how something I once feared so much has become one of the things in my life that brings me the most joy.
Oh, wow.
And that was about performing on stage. That's sometimes now that's a feeling I can't get anywhere else, and it is so rewarding to know that I worked for that and I got there. And I think just the other that challenging thing is probably the fear. I think sometimes that we talked about already, just the constant kind of fear that you're not doing enough, or that that maybe it's not going to work out, and that you don't have another plan, or just not being able to anytime feel completely relieved, with no pressure at all. And I think that's just been another really challenging part. And I can't speak to the reward on that yet.
Yes, you can. Oh my God.
Well, actually, okay, yeah. Some cases I would say because of that, I'm able to appreciate small victories so much. And so something like a couple weeks ago, I put my first like real headlining show in Orlando, and I was so scared. I was scared people weren't going to show up, and it was going to be embarrassing, and it was going to not be worth our, we were going to have put so much work on it, and it was not going to work out. And I dealt with all of that, and then the show went so amazing. There were so many people there. I was not expecting it, and people were singing the songs. And wow. I actually just got the pictures back from the show, and people looked so happy in the photos, and those things that 10 years from now, hopefully I'll look back and I'll be like, okay, that show was literally nothing. But the fact that I can feel so much happiness from that, I think that's very rewarding. You learn to appreciate those those small victories a lot, that's a rewarding thing.
Oh my God, that's huge. Those small victories are the ones that, you're gonna, like you said, look back on years to come. And it's gonna be like, wow, like that was my big victory. And it's exciting. Like it makes you feel like you can honestly just accomplish anything and everything. And I'm sure you will, because you're gonna have that big show at Madison Square Garden or something of that nature, and you're gonna look back. But that show, the little tiny one, or probably wasn't tiny, but the little small one will be so huge in your heart that you never know. Sometimes I've learned that the smallest things can be the biggest things in the grand scheme of things. So
it's funny that you say that, because I was talking with somebody about that the other day. Like we were talking about trying to be super in the moment, and I think especially for what I'm doing, it's very easy for me to just be like, oh my God, I can't wait for something to give. I can't wait till I can be at this level, or till I can be doing this. But I really actually try, and I always tell this to my team, like, let's stop for a second and appreciate where we are right now, because it'll never be this easy to get this happy again. You know what I mean? Like, it might be that even if I do play whatever, the Amway one day, or whatever arena, it might be that the happiness and the pride I was able to feel from this show is the same, if not more, than what I would feel from that, of what we talked about those small victories. And I just try to be so in the moment of like, it will never be this easy, to feel this like happy, because you have so much control and you're working so hard for it, that I try not to be like, oh, I just can't wait till I can do this and not worry about this and be here. And I think that's an important thing to do. It keeps you really keeps you sane, maybe.
Yeah. No, it's important to be sane. I 100% agree.
Yes, I recommend it.
Yeah, right. It's like it kind of helps the day-to-day life. But that's incredible. You are such a humble and honest person, and it's just been such an honor to just kind of watch you grow. And if we could talk to our little volleyball playing middle school or whatever, however old we were, selves, it's just you never picture where your life is going to go. And I know I've never thought about it as much as I do now. And it's so funny how interactions or passions or drives can just change your whole life. And I mean, I think for you and I, it's really kind of made us who we are and will continue to be. And yeah, it's been phenomenal watching you blossom into the young artist that you are.
I totally 100% feel the same about you. So I really appreciate you asking to do this with me today. And we need to hang out more because it's true. We really do kind of understand each other in that way. And it's so nice that what I've loved is that we've always really, even though maybe we weren't in the closest friend groups, we've always really respected and supported each other, which I love. So thank you for that support.
Yeah, anytime. I think, and for people like listening, it doesn't matter if you're best buddies with someone at, one point in your life, because it's that mutual respect that's like kind of unspoken at points in our life is just that creates a friendship. And I've always been like, you know what, I can call Casey, I can speak to Casey, it's like we can like help each other. And it's funny, like it's true, we weren't in the same friend groups and we didn't always do the same things, but at the end of the day, I know that we could call each other and have each other just because of our mutual drive and support. And I think that, for those people listening, that it's those relationships and that mutual respect, trust, and just kind of, what's the word, admirability. I think I butchered that, but
No.
Do you have anything, that you want to kind of share about that's coming up?
Yeah, sure. So I did recently release a song called I Want You, and you can hear it wherever you listen to music. And if you want to follow me on social media, my name is I am Casey Conroy.
Oh, perfect. Because you are Casey Conroy. I like that.
Yeah, no lie about that. No lies.
Every time I have a guest on the show, I always make them, not, totally against their will, nothing like that, but just kind of lead us out with the tagline.
I am Casey Conroy, and be bold, be you, and be blatantly honest.